Question on the list. How did you get into yoga? And I remember you being a not so big woman. You were you were really stacked as a woman back in the 2000s. Like you can
Yep.
punch a wall and get away with it back in those days. How did you get into yoga?
Honestly, it was right around the time that I met you guys.
Mm,
I was pregnant with my middle,
yes.
and just like with my first, morning sickness was evil.
Yes, it is.
I dealt with hyperemesis gravidarum with all three of my pregnancies.
Jesus.
It is the same thing that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, dealt with hers.
Yes.
I feel so sorry for her.
Mm,
But so my ex-mother-in-law, she was my mother-in-law at the time. She was, probably still is, very much into the holistic healing and things like that. So her first thought was, for the morning sickness, okay, let's try chiropractor. That didn't help.
mm,
And then she was like, well, why don't you try doing yoga?
mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, sounds cool, sounds fun. I've kind of been interested. So I went out, bought a mat, bought some prenatal DVDs, came home, tried the DVD once,
Mm-hmm.
and was so terrified that I was going to hurt myself
Mm.
without someone there to make sure I was in proper alignment and everything. I put the mat away and didn't touch the DVDs again.
Hmm.
So that was pregnant with the one who is now 23.
Hmm.
Um, we moved up here in October of 04.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were up here, the Seattle VA decided to offer mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR.
Okay.
Oh, look it up. It is amazing, because one of the biggest reason I was invited to participate is my PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing for PTSD. Saved my life. Completely other story. But one part of the MBSR was some very basic yoga. And I kind of was intrigued.
Okay.
Come to find out, one of the other clinics at the VA that I was in offered a weekly yoga class. And I'm like, dude, sign me up. I want to do this. And then before I was even halfway through my first class, I was hooked. And I knew from that moment I was going to teach yoga someday.
Mm-hmm.
It ended up being a 15-year dream, but I managed it.
Nice.
The person who convinced me to not do it back then is no longer with us. And I made the decision, by the time I'm 45, I am going to, at the very least, be enrolled in yoga teacher training in my first 200 hour.
Okay.
I took my first class in October. I turned 45 the following January. And then on Father's Day of 23, I got my 200-hour certification to teach yoga.
Nice.
Yes. And my instructor was shocked at me, because she said that I was consistently one of the best students she had when it came to the tests.
Yes.
And when we did our final, I emailed it back to her, and I'm like, I know I blew at least one of these questions. I think two of them, but I'll still pass, right? I got an email back from her half an hour later going, I have no idea what you are talking about. This was a perfect test.
Yahtzee. Nice.
Yeah. So that was me getting into yoga, and oh my, it has been such a life changer. The yoga, the MBSR, all of it.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that the VA are stepping up and actually trying different methods of fixing PTSD. I'm a former. I'm not even former. I have PTSD still to this day, and I've kind of figured it out. Obviously, no one can really figure it out, and I hope one day in our lives we can actually cure PTSD, cure it,
Yes.
not just treat it, cure it.
No, cure it.
Thank
Because
you.
if we can cure PTSD, there are multiple other mental issues that we can actually cure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my girlfriend and future wife, she has PTSD from other things in her life, but when she sits down with me and I tell her, you want me to talk about my Navy days? Let's talk about my Navy days. She starts crying because she's like, again, you met me during the like fun times and then like all the other times. The things I remember just would make a person wake up sweaty.
I've heard some of the stuff that you lived through.
It was I think it's either the beatdowns, the various liquids of things that come out of your body that were thrown at me, or the fact that I had to hide half the time because I was getting like beat all the fucking time. But I digress, and let's try to pivot from my racking freaking PTSD, and let's have some fun for a second by showing one of 3 segments. Not even segments, one of 3 showcases.
Okay.
As to remind everybody, you can pause the video, go back, see all the socials, and in the description below, website, YouTube, Patreon, Offset Guest. Down below, ready to go. Click and see the moon.
Oh, yeah.
Comments coming in from talking about my beautiful wife, existence. Hi, would love to talk about the idea of other worlds, especially with Halloween just passing and the history behind it. And obviously, which is ironic.